I'm Ellen Goldschmidt. I'm here at Blackfish Gallery in Portland, Oregon, and I'm standing in front of one of the drawings in my show. The show's titled Not All Black and White. All of the pieces were made this year, 2012, and they're very improvisational compositions. The process that I used to make them really was just to go up to a big piece of white paper and start drawing, and to try to follow the line to see what would emerge. And what emerged were a lot of really peculiar, sometimes creepy figures. And they kind of disturbed me at first, but I decided to stick with it, and I've gotten very comfortable with these characters over the year that I've been working with them. So this piece is called Grown-Up Monsters. I found that the process of drawing, not from the model, I never used a model, these characters came out of my, I guess, just stored visual memories. You know, what they ended up with were distortions that were very expressive and seemed to carry a lot of content. This piece is titled Tiptoe. I think of all the different faces here as kind of aspects of this central figure's inner world. So all the pieces are primarily graphite on paper. There's some charcoal, some matte medium, and mixed with graphite powder. This piece is called Hockney, Neil, and Beanstalk. The characters at the bottom are my kind of representation of those two artists who are influences of mine. And we have the two chairs. The top one on the left is actually one that Neil painted herself in a well-known self-portrait.
How about those stools down here?
The stools, actually that's a stool from my studio. So there's one chair that represents Hockney, one Neil, and then here's a chair from my studio. This piece is called Gangster. A lot of what I seem to find coming out as I was doing these drawings was kind of an ambiguity in sexuality, so there's kind of an androgynous quality. This figure represents to me somehow. This piece is titled Sermon. It's really the only one with any appreciable color. I started to use color ink at the end of the process of working on the pieces. And this piece is titled Fishbowl. It's two women, a younger woman and an older woman. Again, you see some of the distortion.
So how did you decide to have the bottom part curling up like that?
Scrolled like that?
Yeah.
Well, all of the paper, which came on a big roll, tended to want to scroll. And as I was working on these, a lot of them had scrolls. I ended up just leaving this because it had this interesting kind of sculptural shape, and I thought it really worked with this particular image. On all the others, I more or less removed that part.
And this piece here?
This piece is called Empty Words. And one of the visitors from the opening said, "Oh, that must be a Republican." I don't know. That's not exactly how I had envisioned it.
Are you a Republican or a Democrat?
I'm not going to go into that.
I thought you were a controversial figure.
Pardon me?
I thought you liked to be controversial.
I would rather not do that on YouTube.
And
this piece I call All Saints. And I guess here I see some of the stuff that crept into these drawings were some art historical references and references to popular culture. And this one, there were some kind of religious references. This character here reminds me kind of Bernadette from Song of Bernadette. And this one reminds me of Saint Anne from a Da Vinci, you know, piece. I gave her a Picasso hat.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And when I was working on this piece, I wrote up here, this I think is kind of another title for my show. The show is titled Not All Black and White, but it could also be called What I Know About Drawing So Far and a Few Things I Know About People.
So what do you know about people?
Well, I hope that comes through in these drawings. I hope I don't have to summarize it verbally. But, you know, something about our inner worlds and what we're...
How about these little things down here?
Well, those are collage bits.
Yeah.
And a few little characters.
Yeah.
So these are, you know, very improvisational drawings and kind of collage together images. So this is the largest piece in the show. It's something like 12 feet wide, and it's composed of 3 panels of the drawing paper. It's called Subway Drawing, and it has an interesting evolution because it began with a figure on this panel right here. These other 2 figures I drew in reaction to her, and then she disappeared before the drawing was completed. I imagine these figures sitting in the subway, and maybe the viewer is seated opposite them. And there's an interchange, you know, of questioning and wondering about identities going back and forth. This figure is kind of a complex figure because he's clearly a contemporary young man with the chef's hat, though it really recalls old imagery from advertising and cliches and stereotypes from a much earlier era.
You like all that white space, especially on the 3rd panel. There's not, and how it goes all the way down, and they're all uneven. That's really
right. Yeah, I like the casual quality of showing these drawings unframed and really showing the character of the paper. And
so when you were doing these, did you right away decided that they will not be framed?
Pretty quickly. I mean, first of all, when I started them, I wasn't even sure I was going to show them. But once I got far enough to feel that I was ready to do that, I thought, yes, that I would just hang them on the wall as discreetly as possible and just let them be. This piece is called Oh Really? And it's one of the first pieces in the group of work here. I think maybe one of the first that I brought 2 figures together and started to see an interesting interaction between the 2 figures. To me, it speaks again of kind of, here's the 2 figures, probably a male and a female figure, although this one's a little androgynous. And they are not understanding each other fully. They each have their own feelings. It is collage. Yeah, there are collage pieces here. This piece, and this piece. And then both of the figures are collaged onto their background.
Oh, yeah.
And this is charcoal and Conte and a little bit of oil pastel.
That's oil pastel, right?
Right, the lips. Right.
So you say this is your first drawing that you did?
It's not the first one. Actually, the first one's around the corner. It might be the 2nd or 3rd.
Oh, I see. Let's go to the back.
Okay, there's one more piece right around here that's kind of dark. Well, this is the first piece in the series. It's the first time I stepped up to the giant piece of paper to see if I could transform or transplant figures that I was drawing on a small scale in my sketchbook onto a larger scale. And I call it Inner Circle. This pretty much represented the inside of my brain at the moment I made this piece. There were quite a few different voices.
So some of these were drawn in, and this part is
There is a collage piece there, yeah.
And what's this mustache or something? What is that?
It is. It's a Band-Aid. It's a mustache Band-Aid.
Oh. Skipping it up.
What grades are you guys in?
I'm from 5th, and we're in the 3rd and 2nd.
Cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What inspired you to do graphite?
You know, I think I like how simple it is, that it's like the most basic art material possible, and it's so malleable, and it's just the most direct thing, you know, between what might be going through your head and your hand and the paper. Wow.
So they're using some of the same techniques that we're seeing in some of your work, which is
definitely. I like all the different mark making you guys are doing. Very cool.
Do you want to ask her about her tools? Like what?
Oh, you might be interested. You know, see how there's a lot of smudged areas and marks? I use something, it's called graphite powder. So it's your, yeah, it's your pencil lead all ground up into a really fine powder, and then I just take a rag with it and you can draw with it.
That sounds
fun. So you can make big brushy marks.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
Now, do you make your own powder, or do you purchase it?
I purchase it, yeah.
I was curious what kind of paper you were using.
Strathmore drawing paper comes in a couple different widths. It's in a roll. Yeah, so you can, you know, make it giant. Really, these things are so rough and so impetuous and improvisational. I usually just tap into my wall. But then when I start thinking, oh, well, I might want to show this, then I usually put tabs at the top.
So it doesn't get pulled. Yeah.
What inspired you to do like grown-ups and things like that?
Yeah, that particular piece. Well, you know, all of these pieces, I didn't preconceive them. I didn't think in my head, I want to draw two figures that are kind of elongated and grotesque. I would just go up to the paper and I'd start to draw. I pretty much had in my head I was drawing figurative. You know,
Do you know what the figure means? Yeah, people. Right?
And then I would start to draw, and I just kind of follow the line, and it would suggest, you know, a face, an expression or whatever, and even a body. And so what I found is that through doing that, I could tap into all sorts of memories and things I have stored in there. You guys have them too. You just have to find a way to get them out through your hand.